The US federal budget deficit is expected to balloon to more than $1.48 trillion Australian dollars in the next fiscal year under the first projections, taking into account the big budget deal that President Donald Trump and Congress reached this summer, the Congressional Budget Office reported. The return of $1 trillion annual deficits comes despite Mr. Trump's vow when running for office that he would not just balance the budget but pay down the entire national debt. The nation's fiscal outlook is challenging, said Philip Swagel, director of the non-partisan CBO. The U.S. federal budget deficit is expected to balloon to more than $1.48 trillion Australian dollars in the next fiscal year under the first projections, taking into account the big budget deal that President Donald Trump and Congress reached this summer. Federal debt, which is already high by historical standards, is on an unsustainable course. The office on Wednesday upped this year's deficit projection by $63 billion and the cumulative deficit projection for the next decade by $809 billion. The higher deficit projections come even as the CBO reduced its estimate for interest rates, which lowers borrowing costs, and as it raised projections for economic growth in the near term. The number crunchers at CBO projected the deficit for the current fiscal year will come to $960 billion. In the next fiscal year, which begins October 1st, it will exceed $1 trillion. Related articles say CBO said the budget deal signed into law earlier this month, which took away the prospect of a government shutdown in October and the threat of deep automatic spending cuts, would boost deficits by $1.7 trillion over the coming decade. Increased spending on disaster relief and border security would add $255 billion. Downward revisions to the forecast for interest rates will help the picture, trimming $1.4 trillion. The office on Wednesday upped this year's deficit projection by $63 billion and the cumulative deficit projection for the next decade by $809 billion. Mr. Swagel said the federal debt will rise even higher after the coming decade because of the nation's aging population and higher spending on health care. To put the country on sustainable footing, Mr. Swagel said, lawmakers will have to increase taxes, cut spending, or combine the two approaches. The CBO projects that the economy will expand more slowly, from 2.3% this year to 1.8% on average in the next 4 years. Copyright 9 Digital Pty Limited 2019. Let's block ads. Why?